Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching, whatever time you're listening. Welcome to Your Onion podcast show. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Ahmed Khan. How are you, Ahmed?
I'm great. How are you, Stefan?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
Like with all my guests, could you give us a brief introduction to what you're doing at the moment?
Would you like what I'm doing at the moment, or how I got here,
No.
What I'm doing at the moment?
I've changed my format because that was my first question. You know, where have you come from? And then especially with the older generation, you get
long tail.
25 minutes, and then it's only 5 minutes on extra. So it's good to find out what the person does now,
right?
So people get that concept,
right?
And then we can go back in history.
Okay. Inadvertently, you see, I did my homework.
But you switched
the format.
I like it.
But inadvertently, even starting this way, we're going to end up with about 25 minutes of history anyway.
But do your elevator pitch. If I met you in an elevator, just tell me what you're doing.
Okay. I'm not very good at elevator pitches, primarily because I'm involved in several things. But I can break those down into three areas.
Right.
Revenue performance consultancy, supply chain training, and I'm an international ambassador for FMCG Brands, building up for the 2022 World Cup. And those are the three areas that I tend to operate in Doha.
Very nice. I had to look up what FMC...
Fast-moving consumer goods.
That's it.
Yes.
Just anyone who's listening, that's what it means. Fast-moving consumer goods.
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, we can delve into those three later, if we get to that.
Okay.
Well, let's go back in time.
Okay.
So take us to where you were born. What did you study?
Okay.
And how did you end up, I would say, in the Middle East? Because I know...
Okay. Right. Well, I was born in Detroit, Michigan. My name always wasn't Ahmed Khan. I converted to Islam maybe 35 years ago, and I changed my name. And I generally, you open the door, huh? And I generally tell people, well, I didn't do it for religious purposes, but I did it as somewhat of I was 18. So when you're 18, you do things, you figure you can go out and conquer the world and change the world. I discovered soon that I couldn't do that, so I settled for something easier like changing my name.
Okay.
So I went to school, Detroit, Wayne State University. I majored in communication, public relations, journalism.
Okay, all right. Was that something that you were always drawn to, the whole communication side of things?
I went to college. I averted a football scholarship. I was doing that for fun, and when it came college time, I said, no, it takes a lot for me to study. So I actually went to college thinking I'd become a lawyer.
Okay.
And I had one communication course. And I was fortunate to have a fantastic instructor, Ernest Bale. Mm-hmm. And he was, eloquent, not just in terms of presenting, but the understanding, the theory, the practice. He was a walking example of a communication model.
And he inspired
you. Yes. Yeah. And I went and... going into undergrad, there's a high percentage of people that change their major, start off with something. I was fortunate, and I went through. I minored in marketing, which is the only way you can cross-reference and get into the business school. So that's been my love, or my first introduction into the university. I also... I got my bachelor's from there, from Wayne State, and simultaneously I was working on an associate's degree in military science and leadership.
Wow.
I went through ROTC, commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. I did 6 years reserves as a training officer.
Okay.
Not training, shooting, but
So
the more academic,
okay,
like in any organization, with progression in terms of your job or your work or your technical expertise. You, in order to progress in terms of promotions or anything, you have to continue to upgrade your skill set. So if you're in communications, if you're into IT, then we prepared the courses that would qualify them for the various disciplines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why the military? Just curious why. Was it something?
Let me see. Well, I'm from a big family of 9.
Wow.
And my eldest brother and brother right above me both had been in the military.
Okay.
And they had, different experiences. The brother right over me is a 7th degree black belt in Taekwondo, Judo-Kwan, and very enthusiast. And he's actually been in the Marines, the Army, the Air Force.
Wow.
And my eldest brother I think he was in the Korean War. And both of them had pretty different experiences. So I thought, okay, let me go and build my own experience set.
Yeah.
And I decided I'm going to become an officer.
Yeah.
And that have to give it a different twist than the guys that were enlisted.
Yeah.
And right around the time when I did go for it, it was just when in the U.S. they had started, you had to register for the draft.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm thinking, if they're going to send people to the Army, at least I get a chance to choose.
Yeah.
So I went for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was a great opportunity for education. And in college, a lot of peers or whatnot joining fraternities. And I started thinking, fraternities, some of the stigmas are going to have you do things that, maybe against not just your moral fiber, but your human nature. So I said, but I recognize the fraternal benefit of belonging to an organization. So I got a great idea. I joined the biggest fraternity in the country, which was the United States Army. Yeah. And actually, that's probably how I got my first job with Pepsi out of the university in the States. I went on the interview, and one of the interviews was a major. And I told him, yes, I'm a cadet in the 5032nd USAR school.
Yeah.
And for officers and everyone to get promoted, they have to. So he took an interest in me. I took an interest. And it was a shoe. So it's a moral to the story.
Wow. And did you inspire anyone in the rest of your family?
To do what?
To go into the military? Or was that it?
I don't know. I generally tell people about the military. Great experience for me. It's not something that I go and recommend, as in many other experiences. But I have nieces that were in the military police, and this and this. Yeah. But I don't know about inspire or not. So, that's more of I think, an individual choice. And I really don't think my brothers thought they inspired me. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on.
Okay.
So
now, you want to transition over the water, or you want me to continue?
Well,
I'm trying to divvy up that 25 minutes.
I know. I'm trying to get there quickly. But okay, so just touch on what you did before you jumped over the water.
Okay. As I mentioned, prior to coming overseas, I worked for Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
As I came out of the university in management training. And I worked there almost, I would say 6.5, 7 years. From management training, I moved up to head of sales for 22 cities, approximately $150 million worth of business that I manage. All channels, yes, for Pepsi in Michigan. It's a company owned.
Yeah.
So that covered everything from FMCG, fast moving consumer goods, for the major markets like you would say here, Carrefour, Lulu, the Walmarts and the major stores. And also I handled what we call fountain business, which supplied the sports stadiums.
Oh, okay.
So I got plenty of opportunity to take clients to the major basketball, football, baseball
our
games.
Job then.
Yeah.
Perks of the job.
So, you start off, it was very hard work, management training, learning the core of the business. And then the last few years was very rewarding in terms of exposure to other aspects of the business, supply chain, marketing, so on and so forth. So.
And was that a good company to work for as well?
Pepsi, Fortune 10 company, I would say yes.
Yeah.
And I say yes from the standpoint of the discipline, the professionalism that's demanded, and keeping a element of fun in the work as well.
No, that's good. Yeah. Okay, so why did you leave?
For more fun and adventure.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what happened. A couple of times I've always wanted to, I've had a knack for wanting to work overseas. So Fortune 10 company.
Why? Was there something you seen on TV, or you just had that
I've been fortunate,
inner yearning?
I've been fortunate and at home to have, worked and traveled, family members in many states. So, I felt I had not did it all, but, my fair share. And I would always on a few occasions mention, okay, I would like to work in the Pepsi operation in Spain or in anywhere in Europe and the first thing they would say to me is, okay, so how's your Spanish? Well, my Spanish wasn't that good. And how's your French? If you want to, French wasn't that good. Uh-huh. So how's your Arabic? Not that good either. So I looked at that, and I never let that discourage my interest to do anything, because the language, particularly in the professional realm, the language, a universal language, is really the art and science of that particular industry that you're in. So in 1993, I decided to take my religious pilgrimage to Mecca. And I went to Mecca, and I met a friend now, but acquaintances that I knew that I worked in Pepsi, and another gentleman worked for Pepsi in Saudi Arabia. So they thought that was just, great that bringing these two guys together from different ends of the world to meet. We met, and I spent a month in Saudi Arabia, and I said, I could do this in the middle of the desert. And so, we exchanged cards, and I mentioned to him, I'd like to work here. So he said to me, okay, when you get back, just write a letter. And I'm thinking to myself, yes, please, that'll never work, huh? But long story short, when I came back, I wrote a letter.
A letter to who?
To the general manager of Pepsi in the Western region, Bukshan, and express my interest to work. And I sent it off. I said, well, at least a long shot chance. 3 weeks later, I get a phone call. And the deputy general manager, which was an Egyptian, and he said to me, yes, I understand you're interested to work here, this. He says, well, I tell you what, in about 2 weeks, I'll be in Texas because my son's in the university. Would it be okay if you met me in Texas? I said, from Michigan to Texas, that's a better shot than going back overseas just for an interview. I went and met him in Texas. Long story short, the following year, 1994, I moved to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia as a trainee manager for Pepsi Bukshan, the Western bottling operation. Nice. Yeah. That's how I got there.
Wow. Okay. And how long were you there for?
In the country or the job?
No, the job.
The job. I came to Saudi Arabia as trainee manager in 1994. A huge quantum leap of faith in the work sense. I look today at the technology and smartphones. As a training manager, it was difficult for me to even get pencil and pads.
Right.
Not to mention computers or anything. But what I did, I focused on operational excellency, basically compliance to the corporate standards for the franchise. They were a bottler. So I actually got a chance to travel and work in all the Western major cities, some places in remote areas. That very good experience. I stayed with them about maybe a little bit over a year.
Okay.
And that's an interesting story too, because I met with one Saudi, Majid El Kamash. He was a customer of Pepsi. And, we're talking, and like most things in the Middle East, it's relationship before business. And he said to me, how would you like to work for me and start up my marketing department? And big brand name, Pepsi. I kind of laughed. I said, you have one supermarket. What am I going to do? And he slid a piece of paper over. I looked at it. I said, when do I start? And it wasn't really the money. It wasn't a huge difference than what I was making. In fact, relatively, modest. But what he did open the door is for my creative marketing flair to come out. So he basically said, okay, here's your base. And I will offer you a bonus commission on you improving the business. You write up the agreement, et cetera, et cetera. So I moved to El Raya supermarket. He had one store. When I started working for him, he had acquired a second store. So he said, okay, you start in this store. Let me see what you can do in this. I'm thinking, man, I'm into uncharted territory. So he had this 2,500 square meter supermarket, earning 13,000 Rial a day. Mm-hmm. And so he said, okay, see what you can do, write up. Okay, I'll make a contract for sales commission. He looked at the agreement. He says, okay, I'll agree on one condition. Your sales commission will start over 50,000 a day. It's doing 13. So I said, okay, I have the support to do the things.
That's your basic plus having a sales commission on top. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, renovation, blah, 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 the opening day, the store did 69,000.
Wow.
And just the takeaway from that story, I met, there were two twins, Yemeni, worked in the fruits and vegetables section. And, I'm looking at the store, what needs to be changed. And I noticed, several things missing. One, strawberries. So, I asked the guy, Saleh, are there no strawberries in the market? He says, yes, sir, but they're very expensive. I said, okay, I know I'm new to this. I said, Salih, does it come out of your salary? He said, no. I said, well, goodness sake, bring the things. And that was the beginning of a lovely, innovative evolution in the supermarket. I later opened 10, 11 supermarkets.
Wow. But that must have been a learning curve.
Yeah, huge.
Was your, coming from a big corporation to,
huge,
then just running
huge learning curve.
So how long were you with the one supermarket before he gave you the opportunity to?
Well, it happened relatively fast.
Okay.
1 year with that one, and next year there was and it just started snowballing.
And how was your Arabic? Were you learning Arabic at the time?
Well, I did study Arabic in the university for 2.5 years. Which, on the ground, probably my grammatical foundation, probably better than most.
Yeah.
But speaking leaves a
no,
little bit to be desired.
Judging. I've been here for 14 years.
I'm just saying.
I can't say a word.
I'm just saying. But always in the business settings, when I showed up, and I'm thinking I'm going to learn Arabic. The majority of the people English. Thinking, oh, we're going to learn English. So they switched to English, and most of the business, predominantly all, their infrastructure, everything has always been in English. Inventory, back office, et cetera, which conversationally, socially, I venture out a little bit, but when it comes to business, I stick to the mother tongue.
Yeah.
And I generally say when counting someone else's money or responsibility, I like to be as exact as I possibly can.
Nice.
So that's 6 years, and then,
so that was 6 years. 14. Did you say 14 supermarkets?
Yeah, 14 supermarkets today, and I decided to venture on. From there, I had this yearning for
some more
business, independent business, And from there, I went into training, into apparels. I brought franchises from Mexico and opened in Saudi Arabia and Australia in women's clothing, fashion. I've opened training centers that focused on Saudiization and the retail industry.
Yeah,
I'm kind of fast forwarding.
Yeah, no, please, absolutely. We've got 10 minutes left.
I was what gave me probably my sea legs or my desert legs, so to speak. I was the director of retailer services for Nielsen Market Research, formerly known as AC Nielsen. And I was responsible for 13 countries in Middle East, North Africa.
Wow.
So I physically have worked in every country in the Middle East, North Africa.
What's your favorite?
For different reasons.
Yeah.
I would say when I look at the Middle East and reading and, nostalgia and this, quite the contrary for most people that I know and what they would say, I would say Egypt is a place. Not if you say you want to live and work there, what I select, but I've always appreciated the wealth of culture. And you generally see Egyptians working, living, so you get a real sense that you're in Egypt. Contrasting the GCC, rapid developing nations with a high immigrant workforce. So that's understandable as well. So, but right now, I love being in Qatar. After having been in most of the countries, Kuwait, Saudi, 17 years, which I came to say, and I'll speed ahead. I came to Qatar as the chief operating officer for a company called Qatar National Import Export, formerly known as the Sadia Chicken people. Most people, they wouldn't know the name, but if I say Sadia Chicken, they say, oh, yes, we know. And I was charged with revenue revitalization. In 2006, the Asian Games were here.
Yeah, that's when I arrived.
Okay, and I would stick to in the food industry. Most companies experience revenue jumps in 300 to 600%.
Yeah.
And what happened is, just as if I were to pinch your hand or put a little flame to your hand, you would have an immediate reaction to respond to that. Ouch, move. And same as when the market increased like this and people see sales, they react the same way without a plan. So you would start, someone says, 300, 600%. Okay, as they would say, yalla, start hiring people, equipment, et cetera, to put their arms around this newly established growth.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Asian Games, market went up. They reacted to it, market came down. And when you do that in business and you establish expenses generally stay with you.
Yeah.
So 2006, 2011, I came. There's a big gap of an organization that was, I think they were doing about 500 million annual sales. And expenses, the net profit and this were not that as exciting. So I came in, and that was probably one of my bigger revenue growth projects. And basically in 2 years, we moved from 500 million in sales to 700, and net profit increased by 80%.
Yeah.
There's one problem with that. I was working 65 hours a week, so you can imagine you're on fast track for some other things. So my contract finished, and I consulted with them for 6 months, the board, and I said to my wife, okay, I have a foreign investment license for consulting and corporate training. We can go back to Saudi. Or we can go back to the States now. She said, lovely wife. Can't you just find another job in Qatar? I said, what? Lovely husband. Yeah. Of course, honey. And Qatar, the economy of scales, when you're at the top of the, forgive my pun, food chain, it's a different story to switch over to a light company doing the light thing.
Yeah.
And Pepsi, in the States, you leave Pepsi, you can go and knock on Coke door and find the person there. So I said, okay, well, let me give a shot. And I decided to go back to one of my core foundational skill sets that I've used if I'm in a formal position as a staff or consulting, which is training.
Yeah.
And I started checking the different training that was out there, and I basically offered my services as a freelance for all the established training companies that are here. And next thing
was in 2000.
That's 2000. We're up to 2014.
Okay.
14 like this. And I started doing the corporate training through various training centers here. I used to say, listen, I'm not into the training business. That's your business. But I do have a particular skill set in terms of how to acclimate corporate methodology, theory, and practice in the Middle East setting with different
constituencies. With your experience,
Yes. So I started, and next thing you know, that became something that I didn't anticipate. I normally don't put it on my CV because it's something in a class of its own. And I've trained the likes of QP, Capco, Aspire, you name it. A little bit of a household name in terms of corporate. And when I say corporate training, I focus on soft skills and technical supply chain management.
Okay.
And supply chain management, because when I was at Nielsen, they coined the title. I was an expert in retail 360 because I had worked in manufacturing, distribution, market research. And so what that means, you get a chance to understand the shoes of other people. So that helps to create a winning dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you did the training.
Yes.
What else did you set up as well? How did that all come about?
Also, I'm the founder of a company out of Australia called Revenue Performance Management Group.
Okay.
That it was a marriage. I want to say not made in heaven, but in the business ideal room. Primarily, this is a company that's been around since 2005 that basically goes into companies and look at what they're doing and focus on their marketing and sales, how to improve their revenue. And they have a track record of improving 24% per annum in the companies that they've had engagements with.
Are these big corporate companies or are they small?
All size.
All size.
McDonald's, Google, small companies, large. And basically how they go about that is applying the principle of marginal gains.
Okay.
Long story short, marginal gains, you go into a situation, instead of looking for the big ticket item, you either focus on processes or individual performance points that you can look to make nominal improvements on. And then the principle of those nominal improvements, 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Mm-hmm. So I found that their approach to this is something that I've practiced as an individual, as a consultant. So I said, I can only do so much as an individual. It'd be nice to have like mind and a team behind you. So I started to base them in Australia. So if you look at the site in Qatar, so we have an office here for going into companies and looking at how to improve their revenue, which when you look at what happened with the embargo and the consultancy field and supply chain, I said, this is something that can really support the business community moving towards the 2022, as well as covering up this change in the business playing field with the supply chain gaps.
So, because of the embargo, were companies more receptive in using your company and your advice?
Companies and receptiveness, it's like how I ended up here an hour early. Sometimes you have something in your mind and it's
not
it's hard to get it out or put something in.
Yeah.
But it's basically, human nature. Short-term memory, 7 things, the 8th thing in pushes out 1, which one you don't know. But I think when you look at the sense of urgency and the yearning that the business community is looking to improve, the government is on board and pushing and supporting. You see a lot of these street food vendors opening, government pushing for Qataris to have new businesses. So yes, that has helped open and soften the mindset for revenue improvement.
Yeah, because if you think about it, there wasn't, for companies, a lot of companies are family companies, and also they didn't have much competition.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely, and I have to repeat, but from the school of marketing with the 4 Ps, competition breeds a healthy market.
Absolutely.
So I think despite some of the economic feeds you hear from people, and that's probably a whole nother podcast session.
Absolutely, we need you on several times.
Podcast session, but you're seeing the appetite and the thirst for growth and change really heating up.
Yeah.
So I think the future in terms of leading up to the World Cup and businesses, small, medium, and large, are really gearing towards outside or expertise in terms of making the best out of what you have, or efficiency. So I think that really it's a bright future. And in the States, the backbone of the economy, the SMEs, small and mid-sized enterprise. And when you look at Qatar and big business and those signature business, it's really like stem cell growth. The small and medium-sized enterprises, have an injection, and they're starting to galvanize and get momentum. So I think, in terms of the consulting area, the learning curve, more interested in the dynamics of supply chain, which is probably the last thing I didn't touch on. I just kind of linked that in there. But supply chain, and I emphasize that because I represent an organization out of UK called the Supply Chain Foundation.
Okay.
And there are two major supply chain training companies. One is US based, and the Supply Chain Foundation. The unique thing that I like about the Supply Chain Foundation, it's its approach to proficiency in supply chain. Supply chain, if you see any advertisement or anyone that said they're an expert in supply chain, and you dig a little deep, you'll find out that his expertise resonates in one area,
industry,
either purchasing, logistics, or operation. And supply chain is just that. It's a chain, a link of multiple disciplines that should interact and flow consistently or congruently to bring about a favorable result. Supply Chain Foundation offers training in logistics, procurement, and operations with a leadership overtone. Nice. So that you get end-to-end proficiency. And we've just signed a deal with the Inspire Training Academy. That will offer this supply chain foundation ongoing on the ground, accredited program from UK.
Nice. Wow.
What else?
Well, we've run out of time, so we've just got to the point. But so how have you got involved with the FMCG? FMCG
is a love, from entering with Pepsi back. So it's either I've been dealing in FMCG from a manufacturer standpoint, which is Pepsi, or distributor, or retail, or market research. So I feel, and not just a gut feeling, but the 2.5 years I spent in research rewrote the way I look at business. Right. So I look at business from a fact-based standpoint. And when you start talking facts and research, I generally don't go into a situation telling someone how bad or what they're not doing. I generally come in and say, let's take a look at what you don't know, which is what others are doing. So if you're in a business and I come to you and say, yes, we can help in this. You say, no, what do I need help? Last year, we grew 10%. The year before that, 10%. And I say, I'm not here to you're the expert on your business. But let's just look at your industry. So you've been growing 10% per year. The industry is growing 30% per year. What does that spell? Slow death. So then that creates a nice conversation to get into.
So how do you get introduced to these companies? Do they find you, or do you, how?
Well, generally it's recommendation, it's talking, it's being exposed in the vast business community. And really, it's referral.
Yeah.
Referral. Advertising. And again, doing business. One thing I've learned in the 25 years of being in the Middle East is you can't rush it. It starts off with a relationship. Mm-hmm. It starts off with a conversation. And my area of interest, love, and expertise, it's an art and a science to me. So in the relationship building, you find a way to introduce it so that you can establish one thing that's important in a relationship: shared vision.
Yeah.
Once you have a shared vision, then you can go on a journey together.
So what would your advice be to companies looking at coming into Qatar and, doing business?
Call Ahmed Khan, 1-800. No, that's I forget my sense of humor.
You have to do that anyway. You have to give the information.
What I would say, just that. It's relationship. The Middle East, Qatar in particular, beautiful place to work, live, and do business. You have to be patient, and you have to have a relationship that will facilitate the time and the efficiency, because from the West, it's efficient. I have an appointment at 9 o'clock and this is signed. If it doesn't happen within that, you say it's a bum deal.
Yeah.
So what I suggest to people, Ahmed Khan, establish a link where you have, I don't want to use the army analogy, but you want to have people on the ground that understand you as an outside business, understand the market, and can help you build those bridges, fill those gaps, translate those business analogies that help you come to a shared vision and realize a strategic plan. So really, it's making alliances and relationships with people that are on the ground, understand the market, and vested in cultivating a relationship of the vast number of quality brands and services that exist, and have an interest in coming into Qatar and operating leading up to World Cup 2022. That's where I've coined myself the International Ambassador of.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that.
Yes.
So, Ahmed, how can people get hold of you? Come on then.
1-800. No. You can. I have challenge of websites because I represent distinct different organizations. Not like I'm offering all services under one roof, because I believe in the backup.
Yeah.
So I have my website for www.rpmgi.com, and I have supplychainfoundation.com. And when it comes to the FMCG, fast moving consumer goods, which I didn't spend a lot of time on because I don't like selling. I covered that in my younger years. You're a natural
salesperson, just
for the
person you want.
When there's something of value for someone, you don't have to sell. No, exactly. You have to figure out how to provide. So when it comes to FMCG, you don't have to find me. I will find you.
Okay.
We have a very unique plan to bring, because I specialize. I say I've sold the poison, the Pepsi, the chicken. So what I specialize in now, healthy snacks and healthy food, which covers your protein base, your organic food line.
Yeah, we could have touched on. We could have gone.
And your vegan line. But then I would sound like a salesman.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother entity.
It is.
And we have a journey and a strategy to provide quality, healthy options for Qatar residents and citizens, making it affordable and locally convenient.
Nice.
And
well, we need you to come on the show just to talk about that.
I'll be happy.
Absolutely.
So no need for the 1-800. No, forget my sense of humor.
No. Yes. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Ahmed.
It's been my pleasure.
It's been
thank you.
Very enlightening.
You having me.
And I definitely want you on the show again to talk about
Anytime.
your healthy food.
Anytime.
Super.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.